What's the deal with hermit crabs? Why do they carry their homes on their backs? Why do they have to keep moving from house to house? Meat crabs live in the ocean, and they all carry their own little houses on their backs. These houses are called shells. They're actually the empty shells of other sea creatures like snails. The hermit crab lives inside its shell and uses it for protection. It also carries the shell around with it as it moves along the ocean floor. This is how the hermit crab gets its name, because it's kind of like a homeless person that carries its house on its back. But there are even stranger things about hermit crabs. For example, if two hermit crabs meet while they're carrying the same type of shell, they will fight over it until one of them dies. Hermit crabs also sometimes carry around shells that don't fit them, and they do this just to impress the ladies. And finally, hermit crabs will sometimes trade shells with each other. They do this by sticking their entire bodies out of their shells, which makes them very vulnerable, and then quickly swapping shells with another hermit crab. But why do hermit crabs have to keep moving from house to house? Hermit crabs are born without shells, so they have to find an empty shell to live in right away. If they can't find a shell, they might die. Once a hermit crab finds a shell, it will use its claws to break off some of the extra bits of shell on the inside. Then it will back its way into the shell. When it does this, it leaves its vulnerable, soft rear end exposed. So it also curls up its tail into a ball to protect itself. Hermit crabs carry their shells with them wherever they go. They move around very slowly, though, because dragging a shell is hard work. To make up for this, hermit crabs often take little naps while they're carrying their shells. They do this by curling up in their shells and falling asleep. Sometimes a hermit crab will find a shell that's bigger than it is. If it moves into a bigger shell, it has more room to grow, but it also becomes easier prey for predators like sea stars and snails. Hermit crabs can't defend themselves when they're carrying a big, heavy shell, so they have to be careful. If a predator comes along, the hermit crab will try to escape by backing out of its shell. If it can get far enough away from the predator, it will then switch to a smaller shell. Switching to a smaller shell is hard work, so the hermit crab will often take a break to catch its breath after doing this. Sometimes a hermit crab will come across a shell that's smaller than its current shell, but bigger than the shell it was born with. In this case, the hermit crab will take the smaller shell and keep it on the ground. Then it will take its old shell and carry it around with it until it finds another hermit crab that wants to trade shells. Then it can finally move into its new, smaller shell. Hermit crabs are very picky about the shells they live in. They prefer shells that are made of calcium carbonate, because they are stronger and lighter than other types of shells. They also like shells that are smooth and polished, because it's easier to move around in them. Sometimes a hermit crab will find a shell that it likes, but it's already being used by another hermit crab. In this case, the hermit crab will have to wait until the other hermit crab dies before it can move in. One advantage of carrying a shell on your back is that you can store things inside it. Hermit crabs will sometimes carry rocks, sticks, sponges, and other objects in their shells. Some people say that hermit crabs do this to weigh down their shells. But it's really hard to test this idea because hermit crabs will stop carrying stuff if they see you coming.